ordinance and the public comment period. I'm actually glad you came, because this gives us an opportunity to explain a lot of the changes that we have made this year. So, but
You may not be too glad I came when I'm finished.
no, I'm sure, but that's okay.
I'm
Please proceed.
here, as you mentioned, to discuss the clarification on current commission procedures regarding placement on agendas, public comments at meetings, and official meeting minutes. These points all relate to what feels like and appears to be discriminatory practices by this commission regarding the topic of banning fracking. The first point I'll start with is placement on agendas. On approximately March 14th, John Webster, one of the Frack Ban members, requested 3 15-minute time slots for a presentation today. The reason we needed 3 was we were going to present an ordinance to ban fracking. It's a detailed ordinance. It would require that much time to present it and discuss it. We understand that 3 time slots is a big chunk of time. We didn't get approval immediately for the tentative approval, but we understood we were asking for 3 time slots. However, a meeting was held the following week, a commissioners' meeting, and no decision was made about whether we would have tentative approval for those time slots. Then, at the commissioners' meeting of April 4th, another 2 weeks later, there was still no decision made. And when John questioned why there was no decision made about the tentative approval, he was told, "We forgot." Now, at this point, that was at least 3 weeks since the request had been made. We understand that your approval for, your definite approval doesn't occur until a few days before the actual date of the meeting, but that was an excessive delay to have to wait, and to us, it felt discriminatory. We already know your stance on banning fracking, and it just felt that you don't want to hear it, and you were not going to let us talk about it. The next day after that meeting, Brenda Hutchinson was able to get us 2 time slots approved. The other points that I have to make about public comments at meetings and meeting minutes have to do with that April 4th commissioners meeting. And I'll briefly summarize my experience that day, or other people's experience that my comments will be about. I came to that meeting along with several other Morgan County citizens and Frack Ban volunteers to listen to and to support Mr. Gary Nelson, who was going to propose a ban to make a proposal to ban fracking in Morgan County that day. I arrived before Mr. Nelson's presentation. At that time, the speaker was discussing various plans and policies about health issues, and when she was finished speaking, question and discussion on the topic ensued, as usually does happen anytime I've come to any of these meetings. Mr. Nelson's presentation then began, and it began by briefly defining his role in representing Morgan County on the Transportation Board and requesting that the mayor be replaced on that board by someone who will come to the board meetings. And then the main points of his presentation, which was about fracking, that began, and he discussed in detail, the road damage, that is the excessive traffic that comes along with fracking, the excessive road damage that comes along with the fracking, the excessive costs of the road damage comes along with fracking, and he made the proposal to ban fracking in Morgan County based on the cost that the county would incur for road damage. At the end of his presentation, Commissioner Ford took up the rest of the 15-minute time slot talking about an insignificant point that Gary had made, and then Commissioner Close said that he would never do anything to ban fracking in the county. I don't remember the exact words. It was something to the effect that the state goes along with it, and state law or policy always trumps local law. Can I finish, and then you can say whatever you want to say. I raised my hand to ask a question and was told that all questions and discussion would be held at the end of the meeting, although this was not the case for the topic before that. Nevertheless, Mr. Close excused himself to attend a funeral, and the meeting continued. I, along with several of the other people who came with me, went out in the hall. We discussed a few things. We decided we would come back in for the question and answer period. And at that time, there was a disgruntled smoker who was making a presentation, and the discussion was about the smoking ban in Morgan County. At the end of that presentation, I asked if you could ban smoking in Morgan County based on the Clean Air Act. Why couldn't you ban fracking in Morgan County based on the Clean Air Act? And after a couple of brief comments were made, Commissioner Ford then said, we're breaking for lunch. What this felt like to me, and many other people who came along with me that day, was, okay, you better not say that bad F word, fracking, because if you do, you will immediately get shut up. It feels discriminatory. There was question and discussion allowed at the topic before Gary's, and again at this one after Gary's. The only one there was no question and discussion for was the topic of fracking. At the end of that meeting, after the lunch break, when the meeting continued, at the end of that meeting, Mr. Close was overheard telling the secretary to strike all references to fracking from the minutes of the meeting. And that is exactly what happened. You have the minutes in front of you. On page 2, here's the summary in the meeting minutes. Gary Nelson approached the commission to give an update on the Eastern Panhandle Transportation Authority. Mr. Nelson explained that Mayor Susan Webster does not attend the Eastern Panhandle Transportation Authority meetings, and Mr. Nelson requested the commission reappoint another individual to represent Morgan County. Mr. Nelson presented meeting minutes from the Eastern Panhandle Transportation Authority meeting to the commission. The county commission thanked Mr. Nelson for his time. Not a word, not one word in this summary about, I want to finish. You can say whatever you want to when I'm finished. I want my 15 minutes. According to the next thing I'll discuss, which is the West Virginia Legislative Code for Open Meetings, you have it in front of you, the very first paragraph. The legislature hereby finds and declares that public agencies in this state exist for the singular purpose of representing citizens of this state in governmental affairs, and it is therefore in the best interests of the people of this state for the proceedings of public agencies be conducted openly, with only a few clearly defined exceptions. The legislature hereby further finds and declares that the citizens of this state do not yield their sovereignty to the government agencies that serve them. The people in delegating authority do not give their public servants the right to decide what is good for them to know and what is not good for them to know. The people insist on remaining informed so they may retain control over the instruments of government created by them. In the same code on page 3, it says about minutes. It states that minutes shall include, and if you go down to number 3, all motions, proposals, resolutions, orders, etc. Proposals are supposed to be in the minutes. I understand you're not putting every detail in the minutes. I understand that it's summarized, but the proposal should have been in there. My final comments are about the attitude that nothing is ever going to be done to ban fracking in the county because state law trumps local law. I've said this before at meetings in here. We have a constitution. Our constitution gives the citizens rights, it gives the legislators responsibility. The preamble in the Constitution, in which I put these things up there for you too in that little packet. The West Virginia Constitution is designed to promote, preserve, and perpetuate good government in the state for the common welfare, freedom and security of ourselves and our posterity. In addition, the Bill of Rights of this Constitution guarantees the so-called inherent rights to pursue and obtain happiness and safety. And the Constitution also says, Article 3, all power is vested in and consequently derived from the people. Magistrates are their trustees and servants. It also says the powers of the government reside in all the citizens of the state and can be rightfully exercised only in accordance with their will and appointment. As elected officials, it is your role to pay attention to what your constituents want. You are their servants. It is your responsibility, your duty to uphold the rights of your constituents to happiness and safety. You are elected by citizens of Morgan County to represent the citizens of Morgan County, not to represent the legislators of the state. Though you've taken the stance that you can't fight the state government, not all jurisdictions in West Virginia feel that way. The West Virginia town of Lewisburg has had the courage to enact a moratorium on fracking to protect its waters and citizens. I put that up there in your packet too. The final thing I have to say is I propose that you schedule an official town hall meeting on the issue of fracking to be held by the commission during evening hours, similar to what was done for the issue of reducing postal office hours for the Great Haven Post Office. This would allow all citizens to give testimony and would be recorded in the commission meetings. It could also alleviate the feelings people have about discriminatory practices of this commission regarding open discussion of fracking and public recording of such discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for the respect that you have given me, I appreciate it.